Welcome to the Real L's podcast. If you want to grow, learn, and elevate, you're in the right place. Let's get into the conversation.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's Coach Ray. Welcome back to another episode of the Real L's podcast, where we talk about real life, real lessons, and real growth. Now, today, we're talking about something every single person will need at some point in their life, and it's called resilience. Not talent, not luck, not intelligence, resilience. Because life is going to hit you. It's going to hit you hard sometimes. And that's not negativity. That's just pure, simple reality. Now, you're going to lose things. You're going to lose people. You're going to lose money. You're going to lose even opportunities. Now, you're going to have moments where you question yourself, your purpose, and sometimes even your future. Now, the question isn't whether life will test you. The question is, what happens when it does? Can you keep going? You got to ask yourself that question. And that is resilience, people. When most people hear the word resilience, they think that it means being tough. I think that might be just part of it. Now, real resilience isn't pretending that you're okay when you're not. It's not acting like nothing hurts. It's not becoming emotionally numb. Real resilience is feeling the pain and continuing anyway. It's having the courage to get up when staying down actually feels easier for you. Now, I know just a little bit about that, having been through what I've been through. Now, there have been times in my life when things weren't going the way that I thought they would, times where I felt stuck, times where I even felt defeated, you know. There have been times actually where I've questioned whether all the effort that I've been putting in was even worth it. Now, I've dealt with setbacks in business. I've dealt with relationship disappointments. I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with moments where I actually had to have conversations with myself that nobody knew about. And you know what I learned in that? I learned that resilience isn't built during the easy seasons. It's actually built during the difficult. Now, nobody develops resilience when everything's working. There's really nothing to do. You develop resilience when things aren't working. When you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're discouraged, when you've done everything right in your mind, right? And still don't get the outcome that you want. That's where resilience is born. Now, one thing I've learned is that resilience is less about strength and more about recovery. You know, think about that for a second. Most people focus on how hard they can push, right? I can push through this, I can push through that. Resilient people actually focus on how quickly they can recover from whatever happens. Now, everybody gets knocked down, everybody. Now, the difference is some people stay there and some people unpack their bags and build up a house there. You know what I mean? They turn the temporary setback into a permanent identity. Instead of just saying, I experienced failure, you know, they start saying to themselves, I am a failure. Now, those are two completely different things. One is an event, the other becomes an identity. Now, you never want to confuse what happened to you with who you are. One bad decision doesn't define you. One failed business doesn't define you. One failed relationship doesn't define you. One difficult season doesn't define you. You're way bigger than that. You know what I mean? You're way bigger than your worst moment. Now, one of the greatest enemies of resilience is comparison. Now, social media has convinced people that everyone else is winning in life and winning all the time. But what you're usually seeing is someone's highlight reel. That's what you're seeing. You're not seeing the sleepless nights. You're not seeing the self-doubt. You're not seeing the mistakes. You're not seeing the failures. You know, you're not seeing the years of hard work behind the success. And because of that, people quit too early. They think they're behind. They think that they're losing. They think that they're failing. But often, they're simply in the middle of a process. Now, the process, it gets very messy sometimes. Growth gets messy. Healing gets messy. Building, it gets messy. Nothing great is built overnight, and resilience allows you to stay in the process long enough for you to see the results. Now, another lesson that I've learned is that resilience requires perspective. Now, sometimes the thing that you're crying about today becomes the thing that you're grateful for tomorrow. Like, think about this for a second. Like, how many times have you looked back and realized that what felt like a disaster was actually redirection? The relationship ended, the job disappeared, the opportunity vanished. And years later, you realize that if that door hadn't closed, you never would have walked through the right. Resilience helps you trust what you cannot see yet. That doesn't mean that everything happens, that doesn't mean that everything happens for a reason. I mean, it means that you have the ability to find out what the meaning is and why it happened. There's a difference. One of the strongest people I know isn't the person who never struggles. It's actually the person who refuses to quit. Now, the person may cry, the person may break down, the person may need help, the person may need therapy. That person, they just may need rest, period. But what they don't do is they don't quit. And what I want, what I want to say is that something a lot of men need to hear. Asking for help is not weakness, it is wisdom. I want you guys to understand that. Too many men are carrying things, that they never were meant to carry alone. And pride has destroyed more men than vulnerability ever would. Sometimes resilience means fighting. Sometimes resilience means resting. Sometimes resilience means simply reaching out, you know? And if you really think about it, resilience means admitting that you need support. Let's just think about that. The goal isn't to be indestructible. The goal is actually to be adaptable. Life changes every day. Situations change every day. People change, and resilient people, they learn how to adjust without losing themselves. Before we close, I just want to leave you with something. Whatever you're facing right now, whatever that may be, don't focus on surviving the next year. Don't focus on surviving the next month. Don't focus on surviving the next week. What I want you to do is I want you to just focus on one step. One. And that one step is conversation. You know what I mean? Conversation with your peers, conversation with yourself. Now, I want you to go one step at a time. One conversation, one workout, one prayer, one application, one chapter, one day at a time. Okay? Now, resilience is rarely built up through giant victories. It's built up through small decisions repeated constantly. So I want you to keep going. I want you to keep building. I want you to keep learning. I want you to keep growing and moving forward. Okay? Now, the version of you that you're waiting on is on the other side of this season. And that person that you want to be is actually worth fighting for. So thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Real L's podcast. I'm your host, Ray Hendricks. Ray Hendricks speaks on all social media platforms. Now, if this episode has helped you at all, just make sure that you subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who you think needs to hear it, ingest some of this yourself. And don't forget to visit menoftemperedstrength.com. You could also check out the House of Tempered Strength, which is my merch store, and the merch store for Men of Tempered Strength. You could hit that by hitting the merch tab right there on menoftemperedstrength.com. Now, until next time, salute master builders. Trust in yourself and trust in the process.